Hello, everybody. It's Belle Grubb, the host of the Inspired Lady podcast. And guys, this episode is so good. One of my favorites that we've recorded, and it is with my girl, Kami. She is a personal trainer and all about the body neutral movements, okay? This is reshaping the mindset around the gym, about working out, and just movement in general. She talks a lot about lifestyle movement, which is such an interesting concept, and it's really, really inspiring. And guys, this is such a weight lifted off of you, pressure-free episode. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, Kami, so the first thing we always start with here on Inspired Lady is what we're drinking, okay? I have an iced matcha here with a little bit of coconut syrup in it. So good. I know.
Fancy.
Right?
I love the details.
Right? What are you drinking?
I am drinking just a black coffee. I'm a black coffee drinker. I don't need or prefer like cream or sugar or anything in my coffee. So it's just plain old black coffee. But I will say that I am drinking it out of like literally one of my most favorite gifts I've ever received, which is an Ember mug. And I don't know if people have heard of these, but it has fully changed my life. And it like keeps it heated for like an hour or two. I don't know like the longevity of it, but it's literally like this little mug I'm holding is like staying warm at all times. And you can like adjust it with an app and like set it for coffee, for tea, it's fabulous. Anyways, I'm not sponsored. I buy these myself and I think that they're expensive, but they're worth it. It's
That's
truly
insane.
fabulous.
I love there's an app. I love that there's an app.
I know. Everything
That's
has an
iconic.
app these days, let's be real.
So true. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so Kami, the way I found you is because I was looking for some girlies on Instagram who are all about moving their body in a really like not intense psycho way that I sometimes feel like some of the personal trainers can be so intense. And I found you. And I found you. Oh yeah. And let me tell you, okay, so something that you talk about is body neutral movement. Can you break this down? What is this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it kind of came over time, like how I sort of identified body neutral movement and being a body neutral trainer. I'm not the first person to call themselves that or to discover this, but basically body neutrality is sort of the separation of viewing your body for physical appearance and what it looks like, and rather seeing it for all that it's doing for you, how it shows up, and just how it is. And I think oftentimes in fitness and working out, we put a lot of pressure on, we're working out so that our body looks a certain way and so that we lose a certain amount of weight. And I have a disordered background that I came out of from both food and working out. And it really created a very negative relationship towards those things for me. And so trying to neutralize it and just say it is, like my body just is today. It doesn't have to look like this or perform in a certain way. It's just showing up how it is, allowed me to sort of approach movement in a much more joyful and less intense and stressful way, because it no longer had to serve me by making my body result in a certain way. So when I say I'm a body neutral personal trainer, my goal is to work with women who are similarly trying to reshape their perspective of movement. They know that moving their bodies are good for them, that we understand that, but it's exhausting to be looking at fitness primarily from the perspective of weight loss, which I think, or body modification, which is, I think, how most of us have been typically taught to approach it. You work out so that you can eat a cookie. You work out so that you can get a summer body. You work out, and it's a very miserable way to do something that is actually really good for you and something that should be an integrated part of your life. But yeah, I try to just like neutralize the expectation around it. And so I'm not going to be your typical trainer who's going to work with like the bride getting in shape for the wedding. Like, it's just like not the energy. More often than not, it's like somebody who's wanting to just incorporate movement consistently, joyfully, and trying to like relearn what fitness could actually mean to them, aside from what we've actually been taught it's supposed to mean.
That's so good. So is this kind of where Worth More Wellness came from then? Because that's your brand.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, obviously, like, it's under me, but I kind of, I love having a brand name. I feel like, and it allows for it to grow beyond myself, which is the goal, that it's not really about me. It's about the philosophy of being worth more than what we've been told about ourselves. You're worth more than your weight. You're worth more than your body. You're worth more than the comments that you've held on to for a long time, or you're worth more than the pizza that you ate ashamed the other night. Like, your value is so much beyond the things that you truly believe about yourself or have been told about yourself, and allowing women to step into that and release the things that they have been feeling or been told or been carrying for so long, and just remind them that their value is beyond that, is something that I wanted my brand to just sort of kind of say from the get-go, from the name, from up front.
Wow, I love that so much. And I think that name is so perfect. It's
Thanks.
so cute too.
Thanks. I love it.
So I would definitely say the biggest thing that I struggle with in fitness, and I'm going to say probably for the majority of people listening, okay, is consistency. It is so dang hard to be consistent. And I would just love if you had any tips for staying consistent when it comes to moving your body. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think consistency is hard, like you said, for most people. We're very busy, and then we're also very tired because we're very busy. And I think that we have sort of been led to believe that working out has to look a very specific way, right? It typically has to be done in a gym. It has to be miserable. It has to be 5 days a week. It has to be an hour long. It has to be split sets. It has to be all these types of things. And I think people get sort of paralyzed when they realize I can't move that way, or I don't want to move that way, so I'm just not going to move at all. And for me, again, it's like, what is this simplest, most accessible thing to you that creates the least amount of resistance that you think you could do consistently? I am totally on board with someone moving 5 minutes a day. And I know a lot of people would be like, oh, that's not, enough. Or enough for what? Like, oh, if we're just trying to be healthy, if we're just trying to take care of ourselves, if we're trying to learn how to prioritize our time and reintegrate movement back into our lives, 5 minutes was more than you were doing in the past. 5 minutes is enough, because it's not even about the physical shift. It's typically often about a mental shift, that you're worth the effort. You're worth a little bit of the discomfort. You're worth the time it takes to carve that out and take 5 minutes for yourself. So a big part of consistency is sort of stepping back and saying, okay, if I just moved in a way that I wanted to, aside from weight loss, aside from trends, aside from pressure, aside from whatever, what would that look like? And oftentimes it's something like very gentle for people, like walking, or whatever. But everybody's like, oh, that's not a workout. And again, I'm like, for what? Like, why do you believe that's not a workout? Because it didn't make you miserable? Because you didn't burn a certain amount of calories? Well, how can we reshape what working out has to look like? And I like to use the term movement a lot more than working out or fitness, because I do think that we are moving more often in our day than we realize. And so if we can kind of think about how I can incorporate movement into my day, it tends to allow us to be more open to those opportunities, rather than how can I get in a workout for the day. So something that we talk about is NEAT movement, which I'm non-exercise activity thermogenesis is what that stands for. But I call this lifestyle movement. And I think a lot of people, an actual workout is a very small percentage of your day, right? It's typically 20 minutes to an hour for most people. And then maybe you sit the rest of the day at the office. Well, what if your lifestyle movement actually increased and you were less stressed about the traditional workout? So what if you started taking the stairs part of the way at work, or parking a little bit further away when you go to the grocery store, or you're on a phone call, instead of sitting on your couch taking the phone call, could you take it walking around your home? Like, how can you incorporate movement throughout the day in a way that increases what your lifestyle movement looks like? And sure, if you get in a more traditional workout as well, awesome. But you've also integrated just more activity throughout your day. And I find that that makes people feel better if they're willing to expand their thinking on what, I'm going to put this in quotes, counts. And I think we have a very narrow perspective on what counts, which is why so many people feel like they don't do enough. But if a lot more counted, I think you would realize you do a lot more. So that's like my biggest tip, in the sense of just like, if you hate it, no wonder you're probably not consistent. So if you're really hating what you're doing, stop doing that and pick something else. Like, that's like the simplest thing. Stop punishing yourself in the gym. Stop punishing yourself at the classes. Like, if you really dislike it, do something different. That might be part of your consistency problem, but it's challenging. Every single one of my clients, you know, when I show up and we're working out, like I have a job because people struggle to show up consistently. Like this is very normal, but I think can we be like kind and gentle with ourselves and explore why we're struggling to show up and how we can rethink that so that it's not such a like stressor of our lives. It's just something we can be curious about.
Yeah, absolutely. I love everything that you just said. I think that mindset shift is truly a way to relieve so much pressure. Oh my gosh. Because there's a pressure to, you know, not fail yourself. And again, I'm putting that in quotes. You know what I mean? Because that's the lens that so many times we view not showing up to our workouts as is like, oh, we're failing. We're not being the best version. All of this. And that's just hard. It's hard to do that. And I think it kind of reminds me of almost the 1% better mindset, what you're talking about, where it's like, you're saying 5 minutes is enough, but you didn't do 5 minutes yesterday. Be 1% better. Walk 5 minutes today, just a little bit better each day. And then you're going to see so much growth, not in your body necessarily of like achieving new looks or whatever you were thinking, but in your mindset and just feeling better about your ability to do what your body needs it to do and just move a little. I love that so much. That is so good. So then, do you go to the gym? Do you have a gym routine or is it more so walking? What does it look like for you?
Yeah, mine is really varied. I am a big proponent of lifestyle movement because like that is how I move most of the time. You know, my training schedule is pretty heavy. I start most days at 6 a.m. training clients, and oftentimes I'll train until almost 7 or 7:30. And I will have little gaps here and there, but they're not long enough to go to the gym, get in a traditional workout, and then leave and, you know, try to freshen up. And I've had to recalibrate my own expectations. So getting in a walk, getting in a 20-minute little strength set before a client shows up, like I have had to personally get really creative. And I am not a gym person. I actually really dislike working out in gyms. I think that it tends to feel very intimidating because of the kind of the vibe that most gyms give off. It's like a little bit, you know, people are sort of, I know that no one's actually paying attention to you for the most part, right? But there is sort of this energy of just like performance that I am not really there for. And I just don't like to be inside. I don't know. I'm not a gym girly, even as a trainer. And so most of the time I'm training clients, we're out at parks, we're in their homes, like we're in spaces that make them feel safe and joyful and happy rather than like lifting next to somebody who's like grunting and filming themselves and I don't even know what else, which is all fine. Live your own gym life. It's just that is not the experience I'm personally looking for. So I don't even have a gym routine. Like I love doing yoga. I love going on walks. I love going on hikes. Like because I think a big part of my job is traditional strength training, I actually am drawn to much more different movement for myself because it feels like I can just turn my brain off and like flow with my body a little bit more neutrally and naturally rather than so programmed, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so you say that working out even in like a park or something, what are you bringing with you for that? Are you only doing body movements, so like a towel, or are you bringing equipment with you? What does that look like?
Oh, I've got it all. That is definitely something that like my clients will never sacrifice access to equipment because they don't want to be in a gym. So I have a wide variety of dumbbells. I have bands, balls, TRX, weight machines. I just purchased a new weight machine that can go up to 200 pounds of resistance. So rather than having them, you know, have to carry 50-pound dumbbells, 100-pound dumbbells, which is just like very challenging in general. This machine allows you to set a resistance of 100 pounds, 12 pounds, it doesn't matter. But that has really opened up what we have access to. But then if things are missing, then I purchase it. I have a very wide variety of things because, again, just because you don't want to be in a gym space doesn't mean that you don't want to lift heavy or push yourself. Like the workouts are not easy, quote, quote, not that they should or shouldn't be, but I think that I like the idea of challenging what people think a traditional workout or a good workout or an effective workout, whatever, has to look like, and we just like hang out in the park and I like schlep all my equipment from my car, and I am like moving stuff around all day long. So that again in and of itself is like I have a very, very active job. And so then, like I'm very fortunate to where it is not something to where I'm like, oh, I've got to get to the gym today. Like, I just sort of release that pressure honestly on myself. It's just I'm not in a season where that has served me. And it's actually just like made me enjoy moving and my job in general a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're talking a lot about like some of the perks of personal training. What would you say if someone was like, you know what, this is sounding kind of good to me? What would you say to someone who's considering a personal trainer? Why should they do this? Because I'll be honest, I'm in that boat right now of having talked to a couple of personal trainers, and it's just like, wow, this seems like there might be something to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a few different things, right? Like, this is something that I try to upfront acknowledge is a financial investment. Most of the time, when you're working with a personal trainer, it is not going to be like the cheapest thing you've done. And I think that that's good because I think that you should have some financial commitment to encourage you to personally show up. And I try to be really respectful of that with people. But I feel like when it comes to looking for a personal trainer and working with somebody, be willing to like take the time, ask questions, do a setup session with somebody, and really make sure it's a good fit. You're about to spend a lot of time with this person. You're about to spend a lot of money on this person. And I've had a lot of clients come to me and share experiences with past personal trainers who, for right or wrong, just did it differently. And that's their own kind of methodology and the way that they showed up, but it wasn't a good fit. And rather than staying with someone for a long period of time out of guilt or because you bought 10 session package, like that is not how I want to work with someone because they like are too afraid to like not work with me or too stressed to not work with me. Like that is not how we approach movement. But I think it is such a weight off of people's shoulders to just show up and be told what to do, and to have it all set and ready for you and to not have to think about it. And so I know that that is a huge draw of working with a personal trainer. I think you really need to make sure that you're picking someone who is in alignment with your goals and your mindset and your mentality, because I think a lot of trainers feel the pressure to almost get results at whatever cost they can. And a lot of that ends up putting more shame on the individual. And I am just not for that. Like, I do not want I personally don't have most of my clients tracking anything or working out excessively outside of our time together. It's one of those things where my personal approach is a lot more fluid and gentle and what I want people to do for the rest of their lives. But that's my approach, which could be very different than someone else's. So taking the time to like research and really understand why you want this person's help, and understanding that like there's a wide variety of that person out there. Just like take your time picking something that feels really good. But it is worth it if you have the time and the money and kind of why you're choosing to approach it. And all my clients do it for different reasons, but they're in alignment with how I approach movement in general, which is why they chose to work with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have virtual clients too, or do you only do in-person training?
Yeah, so I primarily do in-person training. I have one virtual client who I love. I've been working with her for probably 6 or 7 years now, and the only reason that she's virtual is because I started with her when I was in Texas, and then I am now in LA. Virtual sessions are different. I'm open to them, but I really like to be in person with people so that I can like adjust and tweak, and I'm working on having more virtual and app-based and online program options for people. It's just there's a lot of care in which I want people to move, and people hurt themselves really easily and don't know what they're doing and get really discouraged. And so I like being with them as much as I can, but I primarily do in person now, and I'm working to have opportunities and things for people to do more online things. But that is, the focus of my business is in person. Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay. So then I would love if you could just give a few tangible steps to someone who is looking to maybe start this neutral body movement adjustment in their own mindset and just trying to make that shift from maybe the gym lifestyle or the fear of the gym lifestyle, whatever that looks like for them. So what would you say? What are a few steps that you would give?
I think a big part of it does start internally and mentally, and I would encourage someone to reflect on maybe the relationship they have with their body, the relationship they have with movement, and kind of check in with themselves about like what they're really wanting and why they're wanting it. Because I still feel the pressure. Like I still have that disordered voice in my head that will like click in sometimes and be like, you should be doing more, you should be trying harder, you should be smaller. But through therapy and through a lot of work, I have learned to like challenge that voice and just be like, okay, but why do you think that way? And is that true? Like, do you truly believe you need to be smaller to be able to go to the beach with your friends today? No, that isn't what I believe about myself or my life or what I want. But that mental shift has taken a lot of effort and I cannot emphasize that work part of it enough, especially if you're wanting to neutralize your relationship with fitness. A lot of people just like don't think that's necessary. Like our wellness culture glorifies fitness and movement to an extent that it does make us feel like the best version of ourselves, work out 7 days a week. But like, does it? Is that really the best version of you? Like, just challenge these things a little bit and be curious as to like why you believe this stuff. Like, if you really do believe or feel like you are a happier person working out 5 days a week, okay, like I trust that. But like, then let's go to the next step of like, what does that movement have to look like? So digging in internally, I think is really important. And I'm happy to like kind of give, like have some of those conversations with people and get curious, because sometimes you don't really know where to start, but just like asking yourself why a lot is helpful. Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this? Where does this come from? And it's like, oh, this, and you start to get down and down and down. And oftentimes we hit this point of like, I want to feel loved. I want to feel seen. I want to feel liked like by my community. And so then you realize you're putting this like deep, maybe like wound pressure on your fitness and on your body. And then you're like, oh, no wonder this has been so stressful. So point one, I guess, is like definitely digging in and doing the work, which I know can be very overwhelming, but I do think you have to be like curious about your relationship there to make that step. And then I think doing things that you enjoy. Like I'm very much so a believer of like intuitive eating and intuitive movement. And does that mean I always want to work out? No. Does that mean I always want to nourish my body? No. But I am very curious about what my body is craving and wanting and feeling. And especially as women in our hormone cycles, there's going to be different times of the month where we're craving intensity and different times of the month where we're craving gentleness. But you need to be connected to your body in a way to where you can kind of start to sense that. And so just sort of asking yourself, like, what do I feel like doing today? And like, could I try something new? Like, how could I show up for my body in a way that doesn't have to burn a certain amount of calories or doesn't have to be a certain level of an intensity or miserableness to count. And this is like, just like the neutrality aspect is what I will always come back to, is how can you make this feel neutral? How can you make this feel peaceful in your life rather than uncomfortable? And I think we have a culture and a community of people who that isn't the norm, And so you'll be challenged consistently on it. I am all the time. And that doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make your journey wrong. I think it's just we don't know better. And this is sort of the world in which we've been brought up in. And I know like these steps are like a little bit like intangible, but it is such a deep internal shifting that then is a result of external action and movement. Body neutral movement does not mean you only move in a certain way. It just means you move in the way that's better for you. You move and live in a way that suits you and your joy and your happiness and your health and your lifestyle. So me saying like body neutral movement means you work out 3 days a week and you have this type of thing and you do this or that. Like, yeah, like there's some basic guidelines of like living an active lifestyle and taking care of yourself. But I think the cool part about this is like actually getting curious about what you want, not what the world and our culture has told you you should be doing so that you are valuable, so that you are doing enough, so that you are something more, Yeah. Very long-winded answers.
No, everything you said was so true and so good. And this is like literally why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because there's just so much truth to this. And you speak so clearly and authentically with anything that you say when it comes to body neutral movement. And you just lay it out so easily and so accessible for people. So kind of in that lane then, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Because they want more information. They want to stay up to date on everything you're doing. Give us all of the stuff.
Yeah, so everything is really easy under my name for the most part. KamiBlease.com, Kami Blease on social media. Worth More Wellness is my business, but that's still all under my name, Kami Blease. So that is the easiest way. And I'm happy to chat, answer questions, give, I've got book recommendations. I have got all these things, I know that this neutrality concept is new for a lot of people. And I think, it can create some really cool curiosity, and I love having those types of conversations. I love challenging a bit of why we believe what we believe about our value, our bodies, our health, ourself. So I'm happy to have any of those conversations in any capacity that people are interested in. I think it's a very important conversation to be having.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I love it so much. Kami, seriously, thank you so much for coming and sharing a few of your tips and just some of the things that you have learned and are offering people. And I think we're going to have you back on the podcast at some point to go over all of the other things that you started talking about. And I was like, whoa, we need to get into that too.
I would love that. I could talk about this stuff all day long. So the next one will just be okay, people, buckle up. This one's going to be a long one.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Kami, and we will talk to you soon.